specifically. He spoke of conversions as fruit when he desired to preach in Rome, that I might have some fruit among you also, even as among other Gentiles. Romans chapter 1, verse 13, King James Version. Paul also spoke of the fruit of godly character that a minister can see growing in Christians under his care. This included the fruit of the Spirit, Galatians chapter 5, verse 22. Good deeds such as mercy to the poor are called fruit as well, Romans chapter 15, verse 28. Paul spoke of the pastoral nurture of congregations as a form of gardening. He told the Corinthian Christians they were God's field, in which some ministers planted, some watered, and some reaped. 1 Corinthians chapter 3, verse 9. The gardening metaphor shows that both success and faithfulness by themselves are insufficient criteria for evaluating ministry. Gardeners must be faithful in their work, but they must also be skillful, or the garden will fail. Yet in the end, the degree of the success of the garden or the ministry is determined by factors beyond the control of the gardener. The level of fruitfulness varies due to soil conditions. That is, some groups of people have a greater hardness of heart than others, and weather conditions, that is, the work of God's sovereign Spirit, as well. The church growth movement has made many lasting contributions to our practice of ministry, but its overemphasis on technique and results can put too much pressure on ministers because it underemphasizes the importance of godly character and the sovereignty of God. Those who claim that what is required is faithfulness are largely right, but this mindset can take too much pressure off church leaders. It does not lead them to ask hard questions when faithful ministries bear little fruit. When fruitfulness is our criterion for evaluation, we are held accountable but not crushed by the expectation that a certain number of lives will be changed dramatically under our ministry. The secret of Redeemer's fruitfulness. After nearly a decade of pastoral ministry in a small town in Virginia, I moved to Philadelphia, where I served on the faculty of Westminster Seminary in the mid-1980s. There, I was called to teach preaching, pastoral leadership, evangelism, and the doctrine of the church. The academic position afforded me my first chance to reflect on what I had learned in my first busy years of church leadership. It also gave me the opportunity to study about ministry at a depth that had been impossible previously. In 1989, our family moved to New York City to begin Redeemer Presbyterian Church. A few years later, we began getting inquiries from pastors around the country and eventually overseas who asked if they could visit us because we want to see what you're doing that is working so well in Manhattan. After a while, it became impossible to see everyone individually, and so we began to host regular weekends for visitors to observe the church. Those conferences called for me to summarize what we were doing that was bearing fruit in the city. The talks I gave were based on the syllabi I had developed at Westminster to answer the question, what makes gospel ministry faithful and fruitful? But those lectures had been more theoretical. Now I was being asked for principles of ministry grounded in our everyday experience of gospel work in Manhattan. But the process of identifying principles of ministry was not easy for me, because what I wanted to say to observers didn't fit very well into existing categories. You see, two kinds of books are ordinarily written for pastors and church leaders. One kind lays out general biblical principles for all churches. These books start with scriptural exegesis and biblical theology and list the characteristics and functions of a true biblical church. The most important characteristic is that a ministry be faithful to the word and sound in doctrine. But these books also rightly call for biblical standards of evangelism, church leadership, community and membership, worship, and service. All of this is critical, but I knew many ministers who conducted their ministry on these sound principles and who had seen